Welcome to the Be Amazing podcast. On this show, we'll give you the fuel you need through motivational pep talks, the fitness tips to be your healthiest self, fortitude to push through the hardships, and focus you need to build the skills needed for the next level, no matter what that looks like to you. I'm your host, Cel Smart. I'm a wife, a mom, community leader, and fitness professional of over 18 years. I'm here to be your biggest cheerleader, advocate, and connector. Let's be amazing together. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Be Amazing podcast. Today, my guest is Bree Schumacher.
Yes.
And I'm so glad to have you here.
I'm so glad to be here.
We have been part of No together, which that's not how I got connected with you.
Right.
I actually got connected with you by meeting Patrick. And Patrick I was connected to him by Brian LaFontaine, who I've recently had on the podcast. So it's like this is what happens.
Right.
You know,
this is Charlotte.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, this is Charlotte. Welcome to This Is How Community Works.
Yes.
But I fell in love with what you do because we had a conversation and you shared with me a little bit about your story because we talked about business. I also know you have a podcast. But your most recent thing that you're doing is like what I'm super excited for us to dive into, which is Somewhere Sunny. So get ready because this is going to be fun. But before we jump into kind of your business life and how all that evolved, tell us a little bit about who's Bree.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's a big that's a big question. I am a Midwesterner at heart. We've been living down here for a little almost 5 years, and I have 3 boys. All soccer players. So my life is crazy juggling. I have a husband that travels like almost 200 days a year. So we have a busy life, but we are an adventurous, traveling, fun family. So
it sounds like it. Like
yes.
that would be a lot. That's a lot of testosterone in the house.
I know. I'm like, if I ever get like a dog, it's 100% going to be a girl.
This might make sense why you do these female trips.
Right.
I think. Like,
yes.
I think that's where this all comes from. Because I didn't even know that part.
Probably, yeah.
So how old are your boys?
16, 14, and 10. And my oldest son just got home from living in Spain because he's a really high-level soccer player, and he's getting ready to move to play for Minnesota United's academy. So, yeah, it's been a crazy...
How does that feel as a mom, like, letting go? So, because it's letting go pretty early.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh my gosh, I thought I had 2 more years when he moved to Spain because he was 16 when he moved to Spain. But my husband and I are both huge travelers. We're very much like, go live your dreams. And so that was it. It was like, we're not going to hold him back. He's super first child, like really focused. We knew he wasn't going to get in trouble, but it is hard to be like, you're moving out again. You've been home for less than a month. And I think that's just going to be, it's just going to be the path. Yeah. But it's so exciting. I mean, when you see someone chasing their dreams really hard and achieving all the things, it's everything. So
I love that. I am a boy mom, so like
you are?
yes. So mine's 25, and
gosh.
he's a ER nurse here in Charlotte. I talk about him quite a bit, and he just got married last year. So it's like it's always like different as moms. I think something with moms and sons especially, but like that letting go part and like having to step back and be their biggest cheerleader because you want to see them. You want to see them go after what they want and succeed and thrive.
Yes. And I'm lucky I have still a 10-year-old that I can be like, give me a squeeze, you know? Because it would be hard to have everybody gone. I'm not braced for that yet, but I have like 8 more years. So.
You have a little time to prepare.
Yeah.
I still don't think it prepares you for when it does happen. But
I'm sure not.
No. I just think, but it's so cool. Like even with my son now, like our relationship is strong, and we still have those mom and son moments, which I so appreciate so much. So like it is cool, like as they grow and we all change, like it's neat, and it's cool to have a son and still have relationship.
That gives me hope because I always think like I have no girls, nobody's gonna call me.
Oh, they'll call you.
I call my mom all the time, and my brothers do not. So.
Right. It's probably a little different, but at the same time, it's great. So I love that for you, and I love that that you're so open to travel and you're so free with that, because I think that's really important.
Yeah.
One thing we didn't mention is you're bilingual.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, how many languages do you speak?
I mean, I don't build me up better than I am because I only speak 2. It's kind of interesting that I ended up bilingual, or that I ended up even being a traveler, because I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, very poor, to a single mom. I don't think we left our county, really. I didn't go on my first plane until I was in middle school. And then I moved to Mexico my junior year of college, and it changed my life.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So did you just go, were you, like, what motivated you to move to Mexico?
Well, I had gone to Mexico my senior year for spring break. Cabo was a different place back in 94. And just was like, oh my gosh, my just eyes opened to a different world. And when the opportunity for these study abroad programs came up, I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. And I had been taking Spanish classes, but after that experience, I ended up majoring in Spanish and intercultural communications, and just, I have a lifelong love for Spanish. And in 2001, I opened up Spanish schools for kids. So it became my legacy, I would say, really, is the foundation of my language. And I ran that business for 19 years. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And you and I talked a little bit about that, and I even read your story about that. And I think what an incredible thing to do, because the fact that this has all been inspired by you taking a step and living somewhere that maybe wasn't necessarily, it wasn't part of your plan. It wasn't like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to set out and go live in Mexico and learn Spanish and open a school, and then I'm going to be a traveler. Like, so I'm just like, I really think that's amazing. And it simply shows how, like, taking a step and doing something that's outside of your comfort zone, like, look what it can lead to.
Oh my gosh. It's just so true, because I would have never, if you would have told high school me, like, you're going to go on and run Spanish schools. I wanted to be a fashion designer.
That's a little different.
Yeah. I learned quickly I can't sew, so that was off the table pretty fast. But yeah, it absolutely is that example of trying new things, going new places, and seeing the way it shifts your life and your journey, for sure.
Do you have a story from, like, your school? Because I know that that's something that you sold. This was your business that you sold. But is there, like, a story or a moment during that time that really, like, is special to you?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. When I started, I had been living, this is kind of a little backstory, I'd been living in South Korea for a year and teaching kindergarten. And my little kindergartners could speak 3 languages. They were amazing. So when I came back to the States, I went back into corporate, and I just kept thinking, like, we're making a mistake here in the U.S. by not teaching language sooner. So I opened up, like, a little school, like, very small little school, and parents would send their kids on the weekends. And one time a mom called me and said, hey, I want to send my kid, but it's not convenient for me. Can you come to our school? And I said, sure. I'm working corporate. I send out all these flyers, 86 kids registered. And so I had to be like, oh my God, and now I need teachers. I don't have a curriculum. I was in international sales, so I also was out of the country all the time. But that was the most pivotal thing that happened in my business, because then I took that model and just kept copying it until, all these years later, I had a 7-figure business with 100 employees. I could have never, and it was so organic, again, never part of a dream or a vision that I set out. In fact, I was working towards climbing the corporate ladder, but it was 100% my passion. And there are still people that reach out to me who, they taught for Futura as college students, and then went on to do something with Spanish or education because of that experience. Futura was my Spanish school. And one of the girls I hired as a college student, she ended up working for me, working from, a teacher to the assistant manager, to the manager, to the assistant director, to the director, and she's who bought my business.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, and she's killing it. It's thriving, growing, everything under her. So that was such an amazing moment, because she learned everything from me. She was a Spanish major too. She didn't have a business background. She learned everything from me, and seeing her just succeed and carry on what I consider my biggest legacy is just amazing.
Yeah, like the fact that like you just that whole piece, like going back to like just the simple step of you going to live in Mexico, and then you turn around and you have created such a, I think, really important thing with having a school, and now that you're seeing like the fruits of all the labor and the seeds that you sowed, and I think that's truly amazing. And then now you've started, so we go from this venture, and then tell us a little bit about, because I was curious about the cooking, because then we went into cooking venture, because this is interesting. I was like, okay, well, how did this come about?
Well, if anyone listening is an entrepreneur, they get this. You have this just like insatiable need to always be creating, coming up with the next thing, never sitting still. And at the time I still am a busy mom, but I was a busy mom of small kids and really cared about being healthy, looking good, all the things that we still care about, but we're busy and we have toddlers hanging at our feet. And so I came up with this sauce. It was called Superfood Italian, and it was a kale-based. Don't get turned off by the word kale, because it was amazing. And I would just make it with pasta or shrimp or whatever to make a quick, healthy dinner. And then there was an ad in the newspaper. I'm dating myself.
I love this so much. The newspaper.
Yeah.
Let's go back to that.
Newspaper that they were looking for the hottest kitchen entrepreneur. Not hot in like...
Right.
Although also got that. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes. The blonde hair.
Anyways, I literally just wrote in, like in the mail, snail mail, sent my recipe and my idea, and they had me come in and compete. And there was like a James Beard chef that was part of the judging. I had my team from my Spanish school come and help me like plate all the things and pretend that I knew what I was doing, because I didn't. And half the battle, I know anyone, again, if you've ever had a business, whatever, like half of it is just pretending you know what you're doing. And I did. And I won, which was a complete shock, because actually the people that I was running against were amazing. And very quickly my sauce, and then I had a second sauce. We're in 7 grocery stores. I had a manufacturer. So it was interesting, but there's something that has always stood out to me about that experience. And that, do you know Marie Forleo? She's like
absolutely.
She says, do you want to be a producer or a consumer? And I very quickly realized what I wanted from that sauce was to use it. I didn't want to have a manufacturer. I didn't want to stand at the grocery store handing out samples, which is what all of a sudden my life became while I'm managing all these employees in my Spanish school and my kids. And so I very quickly was like, this isn't, one, sustainable, but also I'm not somebody that can do something as a business because I see a need. I have to have my heart in it. And my heart was not in the food business. So I sold it. But that was like right in the middle of growing my Spanish school. It was just...
It was like a random, but I love this because it's true. I think anybody that has and I think entrepreneurs especially have that creative side, you're always looking for like what's next, or what can I dive into now? And the fact that like your ability to step out and do something, and like you said, just show up and just do it, and no prep, didn't go to school for it, didn't prepare for it. Like, I'm just going to do it. And to me, it just speaks volumes about you as a person, about your character. It says a lot about you as a human and what you're doing and the things that you've inspired. I'm sure your students were inspired by that. The people that were in your school at the time, like, who knows what seeds you sowed through that experience? Not just for yourself, but for other people. And I think that's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely a thing. And I think that reminding myself all the time about are you a consumer or a producer has been really valuable, because I get lots of ideas of needs in the world. And then I have to remind myself, you do not want to do this. Like I got an idea that we needed a website where moms could look for all of the camps for soccer. My website was amazing. The brand was amazing. I don't even like soccer. I support my kids playing soccer. Like, yay. Like, I am there. I drive them all the places. I stand on the sidelines. I don't care about soccer. Like, so also, again, like, what am I doing running a soccer website? I just needed somebody else to create it, So if you need a business idea, come to me.
She's full of ideas.
Yes.
Doesn't want to do them all.
Yes.
But willing to share.
Yes.
Well, again, this just goes back to like, I love the fact that you just step out and do it and you're like, yeah, this fits, this doesn't. If it doesn't fit, you move on.
Right. Yeah. I think a lot of people get really paralyzed by perfection or being afraid to start. And I probably have the opposite problem. I'm never afraid to start. I'm never afraid to fail, really. Because I always feel like no matter what the experience is, you take so much from it. You become a different person. You meet different people. You perfect your craft. And if you just stay just so paralyzed by being afraid of being, having things perfect or being embarrassed, I think a lot of people are embarrassed if something doesn't work out. I'm kind of like, you know what? Like, they only live once, right? You only live once.
Yeah, you want to do all the things. Like, there's so much just in that alone, like the fear of like, I know for me, that's been a personal thing. Like, there's been a lot of times where fear has either paralyzed me. And it can be as simple as like picking up the phone and calling somebody because you're afraid of the no, or you're afraid of this is just stupid. Like, why am I even thinking this way? And it's like, and then there are those moments that I've taken steps and just like leaped or launched and then something happens. And it's like, and like you said, whether it's a success or a failure, it's the fact of how I grew in the process. And it was like, you start chipping away at that fear the minute you take that step forward.
Yeah, I loved, I listened to you talk about being in that contest.
Yeah, oh gosh, that
was so humbling for you and everything.
Yeah.
But like, I'm sure in retrospect, when you think back on that, you're like, I grew as a person. Like, I'm proud I did it. All the things, even though it didn't turn out how you thought it was going to turn out, right? And I think that's so much what people need to take away. And especially like, I'm 49 years old. I keep thinking like, this is it. I have more of my life behind me than in front of me, which is like a really big eye-opener, I think, for women in midlife to be like, holy cow, if you're going to do something, best get on it,
Yeah, well, just going back to that, like about the thing that I did it was the Hot Works competition I did in July, turned 50. And I have the same thing. It's like, I am not, like, there's nothing that I'm not going to try or do now. Like, I'm all in. Like, I want to live life. I want a colorful life. I want, like, to look back on my pages and be like, oh, man, I remember when I did this and I did that and I traveled here and I met this person and I had that conversation. And so when I did the competition, like, I was excited to be there. I was the oldest one there.
Wow.
And it was definitely, it pushed me in ways I had not been pushed. It stretched me in ways I had not been stretched. And when it was over, I did go through, like, I think I even talked about it. I went through like 2 months of like just disappear because I just felt so defeated. Because I was like, man, like, because you feel this time, because you feel that moment of like time's running out. Like, if I don't do it now, or if I don't hit it now, or if I don't show up now. And so I allowed that to be kind of the pressure and carried that, and I'm like, man, am I too old? Am I too this? And then I've had friends that reached out and we, would talk, and my husband and I would talk, and it's like, no, like, who does that at 50, first of all?
Yes.
And you're in the room with 30-year-olds, early 40, and you're doing something that you haven't necessarily done professionally, so you're just stepping out and doing it. And you're just showing up and being your authentic self. And now I look back at it with fondness because I'm like, wow, I'm so proud of myself for not, holding myself back, for launching for showing up. And I have grown from that experience. And the people I met would have never met otherwise. And I just look back at it now with completely different viewpoint. So that's what I appreciate so much about what you're saying and so much about who you are. Because, like, I'm inspired. I'm like, listen, with all she's, like, stepped out and done, like, I'm all in. Like, what are we doing? Like, what's next? Which brings us...
Yeah, but I just want to say to you, like, what an inspiration you are to other women that are 50. To be like, go do this thing. Like, even if other people think it's ridiculous, even if you're kind of like, is this ridiculous? That's amazing that you did that. And you put yourself out there because that's a lot to put yourself out there. And something that you said also resonated with me, which was I want to live a life where I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did those things. And I always think back to the saying, which is, I want to live a life where I say, I can't believe I did this, instead of, I wish I would have.
Yeah.
Which I think is how a lot of people end their life, right? Mm-hmm. Being like, oh, I should have. And it sounds like both you and I share the okay, I can't believe I did this mentality. Yeah.
I feel like that needs to be a segment. I can't believe I did this.
Oh yeah, I got lots for the list.
I interrupt this program for an important announcement. We are having the 3rd annual Celebrating Women in the Queen City event happening Monday, March 24th at Lenny Boy Brewing from 6 to 8:30 p.m. It is a night of networking, inspiration, and celebration. And we are celebrating and highlighting women in multifamily. We have 2 dynamic panels that are gonna be in this live Be Amazing podcast. So you don't wanna miss it. Get your tickets today, $10. Go to celiasmart.com right now. Get your ticket. Oh yeah, and guys, you're invited too. So make sure you go get your ticket today, $10, celiasmart.com. We'll see you there on the 24th. Now back to the program.
Got people to sign up. So in 2023, as I was recovering from my midlife crisis, I got the idea to offer a trip just for women, but in a similar mindset of how I ran my other trips, which is really off the beaten path, places that maybe people wouldn't normally go with their families or their husbands or whatever, and deeply cultural, but that it wasn't a retreat, it wasn't a volunteer trip. And I'm like, well, we'll see how this goes, right? We'll see how it goes. Well, the first trip happened and it was literally magic. That's the only word I can think. Like, women do come by themselves. They don't know anyone. And the first day, everyone's friends. People are sitting, with different people every time. They're laughing. There's inside jokes, like almost instantly. People are not only moved by the beautiful places we go and the things that we see, that are, I say you can't find the experiences on TripAdvisor, like they're very deeply cultural. But it's just organic. We don't go around and say, what's your name and where are you from? Or, it just happens. And then I ran the next trip and it was the same thing. And then the next trip. So that's just been amazing. And to see, we have a WhatsApp chat for all the different trips and it continues on. Oh, here I am with my Guatemala coffee or my Guatemala earrings. And people are just still feel so connected to the trip, but also to each other. So it's been just amazing, really amazing. And I could have never imagined what would happen when you get 14 women, 15 women, strangers together, that something like this happens. I think it's transformative.
I believe that. Yeah, there's a bonding experience that happens when you're with a group of people. I think for women, especially that are going through these moments in life where they're maybe transitioning because their kids are growing or grown up or left the house, or they may be having a job change, or they may be going from corporate to entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. They may be trying to find themselves. Maybe it's creatively, but to come together in this way, experiencing something like you said, off the beaten path, which I think is what is so cool about it. And then you have an element of give back, which I know for most women, there is that sense of anything that you do, you want to leave something, you want to impact. So talk to us a little bit about how that works into the trip.
Yeah. So I'm sure you've seen, over the years, this over tourism that's happening. And, you saw the streets in Italy and Greece this summer just packed with people and the damage it does to the communities. So I think let's go somewhere that other people aren't really going, number one, but two, let's leave the place a little bit better than we found it in a way that's sustainable. I think that's what differentiates us from other travel companies, because a lot of travel companies bring things, right? Mm-hmm. And we do bring things, but I want to know that when we leave, what we've done continues on. So, for example, on our last trip to Guatemala, I have a partner down in Guatemala that I've worked with for 20 years. I'm part of their family, and they treat all the women that come on our trips like they're part of the familia too. But he had identified this woman whose husband had committed suicide. She was living with her mom, who was also a widow, and their little girl in the conditions. I couldn't even call it a house. It was open to the elements. Every time it rained, and it rains a lot in Guatemala, they would get wet. They all shared one bed. They would get wet. And she was really suffering from depression. And so his team went in and kind of analyzed the situation, and our group raised money to create an enclosed, really heavy-duty bedroom for them. and get them beds so that they, have new beds. They're dry when they sleep. Get them a new place to wash their dishes and everything. And then I think the biggest part, so obviously they're still enjoying the fruits of that. But then she's enrolled in the entrepreneur school that my friend started in Guatemala. So she's now working to, make handicrafts for tourists. So it's a legacy that continues on, because if you just come and you bring clothes or whatever, when you leave, then they need to have the next round of tours come. And I think it's really important that whatever you do sticks. It sticks. There's something that you can leave and there it stays. And I've been seeing pictures of her since then, and she's just, her whole face is lit up. And I think the other piece that makes it unique is that we go meet the people that we do this for. So we got to go to her house and see the new room, and to meet her little girl, and to meet her mom, and to give them hugs. And it's really eye-opening and humbling, because, you just don't see those kind of conditions here in the same way, where we're walking down dirt roads, and to have a shanty house would be like a upgrade. So it's just a really beautiful experience that I think really sticks with people that come on the trip, but also that we're making a difference in someone's life. So that's the kind of giving back we do. We're not sitting there building houses or whatever, because there is a need for that kind of stuff. Yeah. That's just not, most midlife women, I think, probably want I always say our trips are deeply cultural with pops of elevated experiences. So we stay at nice, cute boutique hotels. We go to great restaurants. And then in between do all these really meaningful things. And it's the perfect blend, I think.
Absolutely. I think that's what intrigues me about it, is because I feel like it's not just a typical, I'm signing up for a trip and I'm going on this great trip and I'm going to experience all these things, but you give to those moments of connection. You give to those moments of community, not just community among the women there, but branching out into the community that you're actually staying in. Mm-hmm. And that to me is what spoke volumes, because I feel like even if a woman signs up for a trip with you and she may be in a very low place, by the time she gets back, I imagine that her mindset is changed, her view on her own life is changed, and now she has this community that was created through your experience.
Yeah, one of the other things I see with women is that they just really come alive before my eyes. I think part of it is at, our age, we've spent a lot of our lives dedicating to serving others, right? To taking care of people, to building our careers, and a lot of times kind of lost who we are at our core. And so women come on this trip without any hat. They're not a mom, they're not a wife, they're not, they are those things. Yeah. But you know what I'm saying.
They leave the hats at home.
They leave the hats at home. They're not acting in those roles. They can just be who they are. And I think a lot of women have forgotten that. Mm-hmm. And so that is what's really cool. I had women tell me on this trip, I can't remember the last time somebody told me I was gorgeous as many times as you have, or I haven't felt this seen, I think that's part of it too. It's just everyone comes out for dinner and we're oh, your earrings and your dress and you look fabulous in that light, and women are I do. Can you give my husband some tips?
What has been, so in all these experiences, has there been a special moment or somebody that you really have seen this transform their life?
There's so many. It's hard for me to even say, and I have women that are just keep coming back. So one of the girls, this will be her 4th trip. We're going to Cuba. This will be her 4th trip. Another woman, it'll be her 3rd trip, and she's already signed up for the 4th trip. So people do they're signing up over and over because it means so much. But one of the girls, I think this is a really cool story. She sends me a message on LinkedIn, and she goes, I don't know if you remember me, but when I was in college, I got a flyer in my Spanish class for your trip to Guatemala, and she signed up. So this is back when I had my Spanish school, and she came. She goes, I don't know if you remember me, but I came on your trip, and then you hired me as a Spanish teacher. And I was like, of course I remember you. It was the 2nd trip I ever ran. And she came back this year. She said, now she's in her late 30s. She goes, I'm now a mom. I feel like I've kind of lost myself and I feel called home. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. But the story gets cooler. So she comes on the trip. She has an amazing time. She just contacted me because she just bought her mom a trip with us to
that's
Greece.
amazing.
Yeah. So I'm like, it's just this full circle of like, her as this college student, her as this mom, and then gifting it to her own mom who was a single mom. So just really, there's just so many great things that happen like that.
Oh, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to me, this is amazing. And we've already told you, I was like, be amazing collab with you.
Yeah, I love that idea.
So, ladies,
I love it.
Don't know when yet.
Love it.
But we're going to talk about it
Let's
because,
do it.
like, your energy, your vibe is so good. I knew the minute we talked on the phone and you just started having conversation, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, this woman, there's something about her that, like, I need to know. And it's true. Like, this minute you walk in, like, you're like this bright light that immediately walks in. I'm like, oh my God, like, yes, the vibes
I don't know
all
if
day.
my family thinks that, but I'm good that other people do.
Yeah, well, and the world needs more of that. And that's what I love so much about this podcast, is because there have been people that I've met along just through the journey of taking the step to do the podcast, and I get connected with someone, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I would have never met you. Like, what,
so cool.
You know? And so, but what you're doing with your trips, and again, same thing, you're going to meet people and connect, and who knows, like, who's going to come through, and taking that leap that you did, and who you're going to impact along the way. Like, it just says so much about your personal journey, but also encouraging to all of us, like, take the step. You don't know where it's going to lead. Yeah. You don't know what doors it's going to open, who you're going to connect with. Like, just take the leap.
Yes, definitely.
But as far as the trips go, where do they go to sign up, and what's the next trip?
Okay, so, well, we are leaving for Cuba in a few weeks. We'll have a second Cuba trip that's going to be open. Cuba, the one I'm about to leave for, sold out very fast. But there's another one coming up, which is really amazing because Cuba, you can't travel there on your own. So it's a bucket list destination for a lot of people that you can do with us. And then we're going to Greece. And the Greece trip is not your typical, like, Santorini and whatever. I'm sure listening to you already knew that, right? Where it's, like, off the beaten path. And then there is a trip that is, I haven't revealed yet, but I'll say it here.
We're getting big news here.
Yes, is to the Amazon and the Andes in Ecuador. And then we'll do another Guatemala trip to end the year because the Guatemala always has my heart. So, yeah.
Oh, this is so exciting. Okay.
And then, where can you find me?
Yes, where can we find you?
So my website is besomewheresunny.com. And my Instagram is also at besomewheresunny. And on Facebook, I'm Somewhere Sunny. And I'm Bree Schumacher. So.
Yes. So let's just dive a little deeper about Bree. What are you leaning into right now for inspiration? Like, is it a podcast? Is it quotes? Is it a song? Like, what is it that you lean into?
Okay, so this is a good question because I think something that's interesting. I'm a constant learner. I'm sure you can relate to this. Like, give me all the things. But what I notice, I listen to so many podcasts. I'm in my car. I'm trying to do things. I'm even, getting a pedicure and, reading, I just constantly. And what I realized is I stopped being able to hear my own voice. So I'm actually probably doing the opposite of what most people are doing right now. I'm trying to turn things down a little bit so that I can go on walks in nature, so I can hear my own voice, because I got to this place after selling my business where I felt really lost. I was Googling, like, what are the symptoms of midlife crisis, and looking for all the answers. And what I realized is that the answers were inside of me. I just was not letting the noise stop. So right now, I love all the podcasts. I love Marie Forleo. I love Jenna Kutcher. I love all the thought leaders, right? But I'm trying to just turn it down a little bit so that I can hear my own voice. Because I think that everyone really kind of already knows what they want to do, but sometimes they're afraid to step into it,
I love that because I feel in the same way. There'll be moments where I'm listening to podcasts mainly, like even when I'm working out, whatever, it's always podcasts. And then same kind of thing recently is having to get quiet, because it's in the quiet places that we do hear or we confirm.
Yes.
Like, we're already hearing. And I think that I did listen to a podcast, Lori Harder's podcast the other day, and she had someone on that was talking about women are very spiritual, and the fact that we have that intuition and to listen to it, and that we don't always have to have somebody tell us. It's just a matter of getting quiet to like confirm with ourselves.
Yes, Totally.
Yeah, that we're ready to go. And like when you feel that impression, or you feel that like, I've got to do this, I don't know why, I can't show you the ROI.
Right.
All the time. I'm like, I don't know what the ROI is.
I never do either.
Right. I just know I'm supposed to do it.
Yes.
I don't even know how it's going to come together.
Yes.
But just to like lean into that. And so, yeah, that's amazing, because there's something to be said about getting quiet.
Well, and I think like back to the time when these businesses I was telling you about were born, were the time pre-smartphones, right? Mm-hmm. Where all my best ideas were born looking out a window. And now, like, when do we ever look out a window? If we have any downtime, we're standing in line at the grocery store, we're scrolling on our phones. I'm 100% guilty of it. I became exactly who I thought I was going to become, which is why I held on to the flip phone longer than any grandpa. But I think if you can somehow channel that era of you don't have something to do, then so many creative ideas will come to you. Mm-hmm. And I really like going into this next year, like that is a goal of mine. Like stop consuming all the time and just be quiet,
Thank you for sharing that, because I think that's really important, and I'd encourage anybody to do the same thing. Just take a creative break, if nothing else.
Yeah, go on a walk without your phone. It's a novel idea.
Put your phone down. Turn it off.
Yes, exactly. It's hard to do though,
right?
Isn't it?
You're
like, what?
Right. I'm gonna miss something.
Yes, exactly.
So we've talked about a lot of things. We've talked about your journey. We've talked about your businesses, what you're doing now, what you lean into for inspiration. Is there anything else that you feel like that's on your heart that you want to leave with the listeners?
I think the biggest thing is just remembering like to step into anything you're interested in. Because when I was trying to figure out like this journey, maybe today it sounded like, oh, I came up with this idea for these, trips. No, I tried 1,000 things before then. I changed the brand name. I did all these things, but I had to do something. And I think like if you're driving in your car and you see something and you go, oh, someday I want to, try, I don't know, snowshoeing. It's probably not, for all your listeners in Ohio, for example, go do it. Or like I signed up for a B class, just go do all the things that pique your interest, because you just never know the path that's going to lead you on. And I think too often we say, someday I'm going to, or that sounds cool, but we don't follow through on it. And I just think if you could follow through on it, your life will change. Your life will change organically. Mm-hmm. So
I love this.
I don't know if I said that eloquently.
No. I did. So I heard my listeners know this because I've talked about it. But I have 2 things last year. My big thing was stepping out and doing things that scared me. So 2 things that have always scared me: mountain biking, which was something my husband tried to get me to do for 10 years, and I wouldn't get on a bike until I finally did. Cried my way through months of riding. Cried. Cried, the whole thing. Now I actually enjoy it.
Wow.
And I had my first group ride with the boys, which I never thought was going to happen. So that was amazing. Yes. And I felt like such a beast after that. I was like, I just rode with the boys. Like, all right. And then last year, I I've never skied or snowboarded. So I decided, I was like, I want to snowboard, like I want to learn. So I went to snowboard camp, all women's camp in Beach Mountain last year. Fell, had a blast, ended up meeting a friend there. Because talking about trips, like this is the kind of stuff. She and I have been friends. We went back together again this year, back to camp, had a blast. And so we're going to be doing it again. But we bonded through that experience, which goes back to your trips. Also conquering fear, which gave me more confidence in my life to do things. Yeah. And so, yeah, you've wrapped up like all the things that like, I feel like I'm like, why have I not known you? Because I feel like we've known each other like forever. But what you've said is so inspiring and so on point. And I know that women that are listening, and there are men that listen too, like whatever you're feeling right now in your life, like midlife, like just do something, like take the step and do something that scares you, challenges you, something you've always wanted to do, maybe never tried. Like I say, go for it.
Yes, 100%. And good for you for doing those things, because I'm going to do neither one of those.
I wrote a 50s list. My husband was laughing. I said 50 things I want to do the year of 50. And so I've been checking some things off. I've had to kind of like give myself room. Like it's going to be past 50 that you're going to get to do all these things. But yeah, like I really believe like I was such a timid person. Most people didn't even know that I talked, like in school.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, I would never guess.
I was very like shy and insecure, and it's just been over the past probably 8 years that I've gained confidence, and like doing the podcast was such a step out of my step out of my comfort zone. And so even when you said you listened, I was like, oh my gosh, you listen to my podcast. So to me, that's like, okay, I'm doing good. Like, I'm just going to keep moving, and I'm going to keep taking the steps forward. But it just goes to show, like, when we started this, it was taking a step out. It was like, I don't know what's going to come of it. Like,
Yeah.
I have no idea. I told Eric, my husband, he's filming us right now. And I was like, I'm going to do the podcast. And he's like, okay, well, what do we, like, what's the art? Like, it's always, what's the ROI?
Oh
what's the end result? I'm like, I have no idea, but I just know I'm supposed to do it.
Yes.
And since then, it's like, yeah, I get to meet people like you. So that's why, go do it. Whatever it is, just take a step out and go do it, because you'll either meet somebody, a door will open, an opportunity will happen. It'll be so worth it.
So true. Awesome.
Yeah. You're a bomb. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you. So fun.
And again, tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah.
One more time, because I want to make sure this is clear.
Yes,
You do not want to miss out on a trip.
Yes. It's Be Somewhere Sunny. That's my website and my Instagram, and then my Facebook is Somewhere Sunny.
Oh, thank you so much for being on.
Thank
This
you.
was
It
great.
So good to meet you.
Good to meet you too.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Thank you so much for listening to the Be Amazing podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please send it to someone who inspires you so they can feel amazing too. If you want to help us reach new listeners, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Don't forget, you can find the video versions of our episodes on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram at the Be Amazing Podcast, or DM me at Cel Smart. I'll see you in the next episode.